Good afternoon. Ooh, hot mic. All right, here we go. All right, how many people ate at the food trucks? Raise your hand. Okay, how many people found an alternative to the food trucks? Raise your hand. How many people left the building to get food? Raise your hand. Yeah, stats, just down the street, the Chick-fil-A, like a lot quicker. So thank you guys all. Hopefully the food coma will not kick in and we will keep you guys energized, awake, and alive. How many people in this room right now, there is no problem in your warehouse? Raise your hand. You lucky guy right there. All right, how many people have labor issues? Okay. How many people have system issues? Okay. How many people have some space, running out of space? All right. How many people have too many SKUs and not enough pick locations? Okay. How many people have multiple facilities and wish they were all under one roof? Okay. I think we're going to help you. I am blessed and honored to be here today. We are excited that the supply chain industry came back with full force. People were nervous. Hey, Modex, COVID, has anybody come? And the floor is packed, and we're really excited. So without further ado, I will go ahead and tell you what we're going to tell you. We're going to tell you, and then we'll tell you what we told you. So I am Michael Wolwin. I'm with Alpine Supply Chain. And on the panel today, we've got Scott Lee, President of Conveyor Solutions, and we've got Mark Zabido, the COO of MJ Holding. Now, this morning we talked about Monet Global, and they were an e-commerce direct-to-consumer fulfillment. This afternoon, we are going to talk predominantly about a retail fulfillment. We took 7 terabytes of POS data. That was a feat to try and get our arms wrapped around that beast. And that's daily. So Mark will tell you a little bit about what they're doing for all the major retailers out there. But let's jump in. Our goal today is to be able to have everybody understand a little bit about MJ and specifically what they do and then what their project was. We'll talk about Alpine's approach to solving that problem. We got all the way through the data and conceptual design, and then we turned it over to our partner, Conveyor Solutions. They took the conceptual design, engineered it, brought it to life, and then Mark will tell us about the results. Sound like a plan? Are you guys with me? I didn't hear you. Are you guys with me? All right, let's bring it up.
Great. Thank you, Michael. Great. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I hope it's enlightening and give you a little bit of background on what we do and the project, the scope, and what we accomplish. When you look at what we do, we distribute trading cards under brands of Panini, Topps, Upper Deck. Not loud enough back there? Okay. You okay? Good. And we also distribute novelty toy items, and then under gaming, we distribute products, Pokemon, Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh! So high volume business, high turn, a lot of quick.
We're going to just jump right there.
How's that? Is that better? Okay, great. Again, largest distributor in North America. Again, we service primarily the retail markets. You look at Walmart, Target, Meijer, a lot of the grocery chains and so forth. We are headquartered in Chicago. We've moved, the picture is our recently moved new building. We went from 200,000 square foot facility to 400,000 square foot facility. Again, modernize it, which Michael and Scott will talk about. Again, it talks about the number of stores we service daily, about 15,000 stores, but again, it's based on some order cycles. We get up to 48,000 stores on certain weeks as well. So we manage the POS, we manage the space in the stores, we curate the space, we run, probably 550 new item releases a year. So we're constantly changing what's happening in the space. So the constant change really precipitated us to have a very agile environment, very high volume, high moving environment so that we could really accommodate those changes in the retail world. Again, business was started by our owner back in 1993 in his garage. Matt Bayer just started trading cards and buying up old cards from the manufacturers. They would actually burn the cards. So he found a way for them to go collect the cards and started getting in that business, trading cards and selling them, and then creating his own product, a value-add product that we released in the market. Again, you look at our primary business is bricks and mortar, but we do service the e-com fulfillment for Walmart, Meijer, and then we do a little bit of Target as well as on Amazon. So the problems to solve as a group, we all face them. You heard Michael ask about what problems you each have. All those problems are what we had to address and solve for as an organization. Again, our year-over-year growth was quite significant. Again, the advent of COVID didn't help. Fortunately for us, we got into our building right in the middle of the COVID, so no supply chain delays, product delays. We were able to move in and actually start operations during that COVID experience. So it was quite a challenge from that perspective, but again, right team and right place for us to accomplish and do that. When we look at a couple of the challenges, replenishment was a big one. Our old building, we had 3 separate pick modules. So from a replenishment perspective, we had a lot of labor, a lot of time consumed in the replenishment. The replenishment wasn't set up to accommodate the needs of the business. So a lot of effort and time spent in replenishment, which is one of the challenges for us to solve. And then again, the product going to market. How do we manage these high volume releases? Again, the slotting strategy behind that, what's important for us, and again, to manage through that. So we'll talk about that through the sliding analysis and a little bit about how we actually accomplish that from the material handling perspective. And then e-commerce wise, again, we had some capacity, but we looked at, again, as the COVID environment came in, we kind of called an audible and said we need to invest a little bit more in the e-commerce facility and operations, and we're able to set that up as well. So that's a little bit of the background. We'll continue on. I'm sure there'll be some questions, and then we'll talk a little bit about the wrap-up, again, what we accomplished and what our goals were.
All right, they only have 2 wireless mics, so I am stuck behind a podium, which is probably better because I'd be running around like a chicken with my head cut off. We got 3 seats up here up front. Hey, Patrick. Hey, Andrew. There's a seat right there. Okay, so Alpine Supply Chain is a boutique supply chain consulting company. I've been doing it for 35 plus years, and I think what's our tagline? We're follically challenged, gray hair, and everybody's got 20 plus years of experience. So that's a little bit about us. Okay, so is it fair to say this is 2.0? So Scott and Mark at Mark's prior company, Edward Don, said, hey, I need to build a brand new building. Scott wet his thumb, put it in the air and said, I think this will work. And lo and behold, it did. So Mark gets a new job over at MJ and says, hey, Scott, we got to do it again. He goes, great, but I've got a new approach. We're going to do a storage type analysis. We're going to take the data, and now we're really going to make sure it works. And at 18 cartons a minute, you need to make sure that conveyor and the sortation and the zones and how many cartons in each zone, it's important. So Mark said, okay. And he engaged us, and we started the analytics. Again, I said 7 terabytes of data. We had to take all the POS data, and we had to do an order profile analysis. And the first day I met Mark, we had Panera, because that's the only thing that Conveyor Solutions eats is Panera for lunch. And he said, Michael, my number 1 issue is replenishments. And I'm like, okay, I hear you. Maybe the forward pick location isn't properly sized. He's like, I'm telling you, replenishments is my number 1 issue. I'm like, all right, we'll work on it. So Scott had already kind of come up with a couple of conceptual designs and thinking about how they're going to handle the replenishments. And then all of a sudden I got my arms around the data and the game changed. So first thing we did is a order profile analysis, right? 80% of your volume comes from 20% of your SKUs. We want to look at your A's, B's, and C's and see what kind of cubic movement is happening. Not only that, that's going to help you understand how big that forward pick location is and then how much replenishment or what you're going to move on a daily basis. So when we went through it and we looked at it, what we found is that there was 37 items. I don't have a laser printer. Those 37 items were moving 56 pallets in 1 week, picking at each level. You do not pick 56 pallets of an item out of case flow. In fact, we have 3 deep, 4 pallet positions for the Super A items, where they're moving 12 pallets and they're replenishing it a couple of times a week. But those were some significant volumes, these promotional items he was talking about. And in a 20-week period, there were 2 items that were moving at 58 pallets worth. There was, 1 week where 3 items were moving at that volume. So when you have Super A items that are moving at that capacity, you want to make sure that you're picking it out of the right mechanism. Then you can see the next 26 items were actually moving a pallet or more a week. So now, okay, great. Now we got to create this 3-level pick module, knowing that we're going to be picking off of wood at each level. to be able to fulfill the throughput and the demand. As we continued down, then you saw normal case flow volumes through the rest of the pick module. But data told us exactly how much cube was moving, how many items, and what the right proper location is. Hey, George. Okay, so that's the pick side. Well, now we got the storage side. So as we had heard, there was 4 buildings, and we would look at it, they would have almost 150 or 200 pallets of a single SKU. You don't store that in single deep selective rack, right? You gotta look at high density rack, making sure that you're maximizing your cubic foot and your density of the storage. So looking at that, we actually did a couple breakdowns. This is the worst placement. Like, I'm trying to talk here to see the screen, and I have to turn my head. I apologize. So in our breakdown, we knew that there was going to be, after the promotion, they still would have some residual cases, not full pallets. So we had some hand stack for the reserve storage that they would hold. And then we actually looked at how many would be 6 deep drive-in versus 3 deep versus 2 deep. So all of a sudden, we develop a bill of material that we can go to Scott at Conveyor Solutions and go, here, this is how much rack we need. But we took today's volume, added SKU growth and velocity growth to determine the total square footage of the building and how much storage in each profile that we needed. You take that and then you start building the Lego blocks of the 3 or 4 different alternative layouts. So storage type analysis for the each picking, storage type analysis for the reserve, gave us our bill of materials, and then how we should lay out the facility. Now, at that time, you got to remember, this is 2019, right? Yep. E-commerce, COVID hadn't happened, and we started to see the growth year over year, month over month, that e-commerce was starting to become a very important part of the MJ business. And at the time, Mark was like, we'll just keep doing it like we're doing it. And Scott and I were like, well, you're building a building. We should probably put this together. So lo and behold, we put a little bit of a foundation together. COVID happened, e-commerce boom, and now their e-commerce side is very large and very successful. But we're really glad that we had the numbers, and it is a completely different order profile. So on the retail side, 6 or 8 boxes, 6 different box sizes are going to a Target, a Walmart, a Dollar General, a Meijer. Where on the e-commerce side, it's 1 or 2 items in a box. So thinking about the order profile and how you're going to pick, it's a completely different process in the e-commerce side of the business versus the retail side of the business. So now we've got the storage type analysis. We know the different processes, the order profiles. Now we need to, come up with the layout. So this is a rendering of the facility. The highlighted yellow area is the 3-level pick module that we're going to talk about slotting. So one of the things that we wanted to do is we wanted to balance the work across the pick module. So on the lower level, you have 2 sides with the conveyor running down the middle, and you have 2 zones. So essentially 4 zones on the first level, 4 zones on the second level, 4 zones on the third level. So as we started to look at and smooth the slotting in the golden zone, in that zone, pick and pass within it on that side, we want to be able to accommodate all of the actual labor and have no congestion, minimize bend and reach, and be able to have the volumes hit that we're looking for. So this is a actual physical location. We call it a digital twin now, as Gartner likes to call it. We've got a digital twin. We got the XYZ travel pass. We're able to simulate exactly how long a 1 week's worth of orders will take. And it's a cool vernacular for, hey, we got your building all set up and we know exactly what the throughput's going to be. The columns there are in the X'd out, right, because there were uprights that we had to worry about. But this is a rendering of it. The other part is how we're going to balance it across. Now, why is this important? When we're doing 18 cartons a minute and we're trying to get 6 million, is it 6 million lines a month?
Oh, it's
at least 6 million lines a month out the door, I need to know how fast my conveyor is going to go, how fast I'm going to have to do these reads, how fast I'm going to do the diverts. So now we're looking at the 2 levels, being able to look at where the actual conveyor is going to eject the carton, and that's the starting place for the picker, and hence you can see the areas on all the zones where the starters are, so they can start picking here and here, minimize travel before it gets to the next zone. All right. When we looked at it, Scott's like, Michael, how many orders are going to start on the first level end on the first level? How many orders are going to start on the first level, end on the second level? How many are going to start on the first, go to the second, and the third? So we need to know how many cartons are going to go through each level to be able to design the conveyor system and the sortation to be able to accommodate their volume. So this was a big part of it. I think Scott and I met at least 6 times over 2 weeks. He hadn't slept because he was really nervous that this was really, really going to work. And lo and behold, not only did it work, but it's exceeding expectations. All right, I think the only other thing, I went the wrong way. Okay, so devil's in the details. 2 years ago, School Health came here and presented on their brand new facility, the location addressing system, and a move plan. And it's the smallest thing, but we sat down and we thought, okay, so now you're going into the new facility, you're going to have a new warehouse management system, and you have to have a location addressing system. The U.S. Post Office knows exactly where you live and how to get your mail to you, so each location in your facility has to have a nomenclature and a location addressing system, and it needs to be consistent throughout the whole building, especially if you have temp labor, you want to make it easy for them. So it's always, odd on the left, even on the right, aisle level bay row position. And when you go through that and you develop these new layouts, you create this location addressing system, and then you go get all the labels printed, and then you got to go apply them. So this is the other part we did. So we did storage type analysis, we did the layout, we did the slotting, we developed the location addressing system as part of our process. And again, ours was all conceptual. We put it together, and then we turned it over to Scott, and he made miracles happen. So Scott?
Great, thank you, Michael. And thank you, Mark, for opening up there, explaining a little bit about it. For those of you who have ever met Michael before, I am so proud of him for standing behind this podium, because this guy cannot stand still for more than 1 minute. So I'm really proud of him that he's able to do that. And I purposely took the microphone that you can walk around with, because I knew it would kill him to make him stand behind the thing. So I'm sorry, Michael. It's always fun to have fun with you. So when we got asked to do this, we love doing it. We love sharing mind, everything we've learned. So I appreciate all of you taking the time to sit here, because I know there's a lot of things for you to see out there. And to spend 45 minutes with us is greatly appreciated, and we love to share it. So we cannot get everything that's up here and that we learn on this project out to you in the next 20 minutes. So please, we have a booth here at the show. We'll answer questions. Stop us afterwards. I can't get it all out now. So what I'm going to try to do is, when we won this award, we were happy, and Michael was the folks who set all this up and said, get up there. And I said, great, I'd love to present this. He said, you spent 15 months of your life working on this project, 8 months integrating it, 3 months getting up and running. I said, awesome, Michael, how long do I have to present it? He said, 14 minutes. I said, 14 minutes, geez. So what I'm going to try to do is keep it at 100,000 foot level. I like to try to get down deeper, but I'm going to keep it at 100 and watch my timer here. I would love to take questions once again live, but we're going to have to do it afterwards. All right, so who are we? You hear the word Conveyor Solutions a lot. It's been our brand name. I started the business 25 years ago. We just celebrated our 25th anniversary. The name is misleading. We do not just do conveyor systems. We are a complete supplier of integrated systems. The name is misleading. So what we're showing up on the board right now, we actually have a company called Systems in Motion. It's our holding company. When you do a systems integration, you have 4 parts. You have mechanical material, you've got electrical material, which is called controls. You have to electrically wire it, and you have to mechanically install it. Through acquisition and organic growth, we've built those 4 business units, which all function under the Systems in Motion family. All right, so drilling down into Mark's specific application, as they both have mentioned, he had 2 primary businesses. Now, when we started the project, we didn't. We had one primary one, and that was retail fulfillment, and that's what we attacked. Over those 15 months that we were designing retail fulfillment, e-commerce quickly became a huge part of the process. So I'm going to talk a little bit about those 2. But another challenge they had, especially in retail, and as e-commerce grew, you get a lot of returns. And especially in their business, they are, when doing specialty cards, they're turning stuff over really fast. So the second it stops selling in that store, they've got to bring it back in and repurpose it. They rekit it. They do a lot of really creative things. So his inbound, not on the receiving side, but on the reverse logistics on the return side, was hairy. And if I could talk about that for a little bit, that'd be great. All right, so we talked about his order store fulfillment. It's not a typical environment where we're just picking 1.4 lines per order in a ticket fulfillment center. Mark can have 30, 40 lines in one box and have 7 boxes that are all tied to the specific order. So there's some things we got to do there. Now, with some of our clients, we start out, we walk in, and they have no automation in their facility, so it's really fun. We just have to decide, I use what Michael says, crawl, walk, run. And we can decide which level of automation they can get an ROI on, and then we can implement that solution. Mark was there. He was already walking. We just needed him getting running. So he was already doing pick to light. He was already doing, we'll call soft cubing of his boxes. They were picking out a flow rack. They had conveyor systems, and they were doing print and apply. So they were doing everything already. They just needed to do it better. And they were doing it in multiple facilities. So I want to talk a little bit about the cartonization. They were doing cartonization, but they didn't know what carton they needed till that box was full. So we implemented a system. I'll show you a picture here. Where are we doing order start? Did we see order start yet?
It was, yeah, it was back.
Let me know if you see some case sealers or case erectors.
Nope.
Heck, well, it doesn't matter. All right, so one of the challenges we had with Mark, like I said, he was doing everything right. When I went in the facility, it was a little bit older facility. It was about an 18-foot high clear. So he could have put his modules too high, didn't. You could see all the way across the top of the facility. We were not utilizing the cube at all. We said, all right, when we go to this new facility, let's make sure we take advantage of that. Mark did have 3 pick modules. And those things, they were profiled and they were picked and by retail chain. We said, all right, we have to leverage this, so let's make sure we stack these things on top of one another. But when you do that, for those of you folks who have automation, have pick zones, you realize it's a challenge. It's a single-threaded system. So what we did in this environment, to give them some flexibility, increase the throughput there, and take advantage of getting cartons out, is we made sure we put a zone routing system in. Now, as you know, if you're in this area, you can do pick and pass and zone routing, typically in a fulfillment center, if you're picking out of your high-speed items. We're not talking about slow, we're talking about real high-speed items here. And Mark was having trouble getting throughput through a system. To get 18 cases a minute, we needed to make sure if a carton was empty, it got out of that module. So when we first designed the system, as Michael said, we had some real A movers. This is not a typical pick module where you got 8-foot deep flow rack on both sides. On the lower level, we've got pallet flow with mirrored product, heavy moving. As Michael said, 54%, when we designed the system, 50% of all the SKUs and orders, the boxes, should be completed on the first level if they start on the first level. So we had to have those to get the ability to get the heck out of there. So we've got a threaded 3 high-level pick module that we use in a retail environment with zone routing with early outs. Now, Mark's been very fortunate. His business has grown extremely significant. That was one of the benefits of COVID. Trading cards, there was a significant increase in interest there. So his business has grown. We're doing a second expansion already. Literally, we went in 2019 with that building, went live in 2020, and we're already doing expansion because we don't have the ability to exit his pick module on the second level. So that was a design phase. So although we have a 3 high-level pick module, we're already doing some modernization to it to allow a little more freedom. One of the other things we did when we first met Mark, they were doing order start. Like I said, they were doing some kind of cartonization. They knew what size box to start with. So we put in a new cartonization so they knew exactly that he needed 2 smalls, a medium, and a large. And we could start those orders based on where the item was profiled on different levels. So that's pretty cool. So we no longer had a single thread. We could say start 2 large on the bottom, start a medium, and you're going to wrap up with starting a third on the top. So we have order starts at all 3 levels. And at the end of this year, we'll be able to exit on all 3 levels. So the cartonization was a big improvement. When Mark went to select this carton, there was a stack of flats, and I'm sure you're all familiar with the RC carton laying in a flat, and they were peeling off a label and slapping it on, and they'd flip it over and put their foot on it and put the tape on it and erect the box and send it on its way. So we said, obviously, there's a huge improvement there. Thought I had some pictures of it, but they went away. So one of the things we did there, we said, well, let's automate that. We'll put a semi-automated case erectors in there. And then we didn't want to go full-fledged, but with the faster items, we wanted to make it automated. So we introduced an LPN number on the side of the box that we automatically apply and assign it to that order. So the operator has a screen in front of them. It says put 1 large box. They put a large box, just give it a kick, seals the bottom of it, automatically puts an LPN and assigns that LPN number to an order. So that greatly increased their order start capabilities. All right, Mark had a pick-to-light system in there. We put a new one in there. His was a little bit older. We put lightning pick in from Matthews, right over there. This is a typical picture of all three levels of the pick module. Here you can see this is probably on the second level because it appears we have flow rack on both. Like I said, we have pallet flow down below. We've got flow rack here. You can see the cantered flanking gravity conveyors or filler plates. One thing I don't think folks do enough, and if you ever need help with an ROI on this, just ask me, trash conveyor systems. For those of you who are in fulfillment centers, I see a ton of head shaking. Spend time and effort on removing trash from your facility. It's the cheapest cost of automation. Your distribution center is filthy, it gets all over, it screws up the equipment that you have in place. Use a belt conveyor to get rid of this and consolidate it to a baler or a compactor. Really great investment. And if whoever you have to go to ask for money, if they don't believe you, if their boss doesn't believe you, have them call me. I'll talk them into it. So it's a great, great, great vehicle. Keeps everything really clean. So now that we've picked the process side, I could talk about picking for 2 more hours, and I'm watching my clock here. I don't have it. So I'm gonna move real quick. After it came out, Mark may have a new retail center, may pick up a new store, or may have a quality issue somewhere. So we have to have a quality QC in the station. They were doing it all manually before. So now when we exit the 3 high-level pick module, we combine all this together. We go through a QC center. We can QC randomly, QC based on demand. Mark has to, because there's people that are doing the marketing in the stores and placing all the product in the stores, need to have some directions and a pack list. So when they open this up, it says I'm box 1 of 6. I go on shelf 3, position 2. So we have to know that box, remember, I have boxes coming from 3 different levels. How do I know what's box number 1? And that box has to get read, scanned, and automatically diverted, and then the shipping and packaging list put in that. So they used to have to check every single box to do that. Now they only check the one, and when you're averaging 5 or 6 boxes for large retail orders, that was a huge benefit. Most of you folks probably have case sealers. We just upgraded the case sealing equipment. We do in-motion weighing, and then dual staggered print and applies to increase that throughput, and then we direct load to UPS trailers. I want to talk a little bit about that weighing, though, if I can. For those folks who are doing weighing at pack stations or you have in-motion scales, I want to make sure you talk to your carriers, because that's kind of old school a little bit. That's going away. If you can get audited and you're using your weights and you have a good audit, there's many times now we can transfer to file weights and do away with that scale. Because in the world of material handling and automation, your scale, you can only put 1 product on at a time. So you really have to have a bigger gap, which really impacts your throughput on your conveyor systems. So if you can transfer to a file weight, you can eliminate that whole process. And if you can do it before you buy the scale, even better. And then from a shipping standpoint, they've just got a normal PPD, heading UPS trailers. Here's a picture of some case sealers, our inline, we call them pandas, print and applies. We do the shipping label on one, we go out and rate shop it, and we apply the label. The second one, we can give direction, what we call a merchandising label. All right, so we want to really load on time here. They've already talked about most of this when we talked about the fast-moving SKUs, because I really want to make sure I talk about this e-commerce world. When Mark first came to us, he showed me this little area. There was 2 rows of pallet rack and maybe 5 pack stations. He said, "What's this?" He said, "That's my e-commerce area." I said, "That's cute." And it was cute. He was doing a couple of orders a day. And throughout the 15 months, every time I went to visit Mark, 2 or 3 weeks, it kept growing and growing and growing. What do I mean by that? We were about halfway through, and Mark says, "We're gonna do about 3,000 orders a day." I'm like, "Holy crap, you're doing 500 when I was here in February." He goes, no, we're really gonna do a lot. All right, so that's when Michael's radar went off, because I'm like, whatever, let's keep it crammed in the corner. It's e-commerce will go away, right? So Michael said, "No, we should address this, move it into a brand new building." By the time Michael and I started looking at it, Mark said, "I'm totally wrong, I'm sorry, make it 9,000 orders a day." I said, "Wow, that's pretty cool. All right, now we have to take this real." By the time we were done, Mark said, "Make it 30,000 orders a day." 30,000. And we got to ship it in 8 hours. And by the way, that retail thing we were doing, you still got to do that in the same building. So we ended up getting a whole new area. I'm not going to go through numbers because I'm running out of time. I think we've got I really want to talk about reverse logistics, but in his e-commerce area, You cannot pick 30,000 orders. And by the way, when they do it, there's only 11 to 17 are all are the highest moving items. So that means you got 30,000 orders for one SKU. You can't stand on each other and pick that SKU. So we designed this area. We did 8 order start areas with mirrored of the top fastest 30 items, and then we had a whole slow moving section. So we would nest and we would batch pick single line orders with the same SKU to one tote and send it to one of 48 pack stations in order to get them out. And we were not going to address this area at all. So I'm really glad we did. Last thing, we doing good on time?
You're great.
Perfect. Okay, reverse logistics. When I first went over there, Mark had reverse logistics in another building. Not a very nice building, off-site, a few miles away. And what happens when Mark's crew goes in and they reprofile the store, they take the box that arrived, they empty it out, and they go like this on the shelf and scoop everything into this box, and they seal it, and they send it back. It's got this little LPN number that was still on there. And what happens is it gets back, and they scan it, and then they can put it back in inventory. Well, I wish it went that smooth, because it doesn't. When I first arrived, said it was in another building, and these giant UPS trailers would back up, and 2 poor people would those 4 folks, it'd be 80 degrees outside, 100 degrees outside, 108 in the trailer, and they would drag a trailer out, drop it on the trailer floor, and they would unload it all by hand, and then they'd walk it out, and they'd stretch ratchet it by hand, and they would put it in the farm of return goods, and it would sit there on Mark's dollar, on his inventory, and not available for sale yet, right? So we need to start to turn that a little quick. After it came out of the farm, if we look up here, I don't have the pointer, but somebody would physically grab that pallet again, cut the film off, pick it up, and put it up over their head and drop it on that gravity conveyor and let it go down to the unpack stations where they'd pour it out. 6 touches. Every single carton getting returned got touched 6 times. So we said, well, and by the way, they could get as many as 3,000 boxes a day returned after the retail section. So we said, all right, we really need to address this. And I had a personal goal, max of 2 times. So what we did is we introduced, so there's a couple slides here, yeah. So we introduced a system, we got rid of the pallets, got rid of the film, put an extendable powered conveyor, we back it up into the trailer, we load it right onto the conveyor. It goes up onto a mezzanine level, so we're able to utilize their cube. It gets sorted down one of 16 return lines, automatically sorted based on demand, so nobody has to touch it at all. It goes right to these workstations, so we eliminated 5 touches. If the 16 folks can handle the load that day, they all get processed that day. So we literally get them returned, we get them up, we get them unloaded, we get them scanned in, they get separated, get back in inventory in 24 hours. So it was a huge turnaround there. If we can, if it's massive, I wish we had the drawing up there, we're missing that slide, but we also created a buffer system that could be stored by retail chain. And what we did is we put it in closed captured system. Well, how would you do that, Scott? So it's a through system. We went and sorted down these 16 lanes, which we could see up in that other picture that I had up there, right there. They sort down those real long accumulation lanes and they repack. If not, way in the back of this warehouse, we put a separate sorter, had 4 retail chains on it, so I could sort by Target, Walmart. We divert by these chains, and then we had a plastic pallet captured system. So I would sort it and I would build pallets by chain, and it had the pallet flow rails on the floor. So I didn't have to wrap it. I just took it and accumulated pallets and pallets, 3,000 boxes we could buffer by chain. When the normal flow of returns slowed down, they could just turn around, grab those cartons, and reintroduce them to the sale. So that was my second touch that we added if they had to buffer the product. All right, and then real quick, really happy. Usually we get brought in and it's an existing facility and we have to redo the facility. About 80% of what we do is retrofits or expansions of existing facilities. It's really fun when you go with someone like Mark, he says, let me take you on a ride, and we stop and there's a cornfield. And he said, we're gonna do this. I'm like, yeah, we are. This is awesome. So it's really cool when you can take it from a cornfield, be involved in the construction. When we know further up front, are we going to be stealing hanging equipment? We can work with the manufacturers, upgrade the truss. If we need to put it in footings, we can do that. We can pour deeper concrete and work with those folks. And then this is the end product. I know there's a lot going on in that picture, but that's the end product, 3 high-level pick module. Once again, the name was kind of misleading. We provided all the 6 deep, 3 deep, drive-in, pushback. The implant offices did all the field wiring, provided our own WCS into the place, so pretty much cradle to grave. And I think that's in our mind.
That's benefits and results.
Yep.
That's me. Great, thank you, Scott. Again, if you look at some of the things, and for all of us, again, what's the ROI, right? Where's the payback? How do you get the results out of the system, the investment that we made from an organization perspective? Again, the big driver for us to be able to handle additional capacity and throughput capacity on the picking side. And we're able to really process almost 57% more through our system than we did prior to the investment. So a big, big win there. And then also with that efficiency was the reduction in our cost per piece in processing. So we saw probably at least a 20% reduction in our cost per piece just going live and moving from one building to the next. And even after, this is now 14 months of doing the bricks and mortar distribution on the building, our cost per piece on a monthly basis continues to improve and continues to reduce. So we're seeing somewhere 5 to 7% on a monthly basis. So again, the operations team continues to work and drive the results and look at optimization of the release strategies and the throughput of the process. So Scott talked about the lightning pick with Matthews. It's a very simple system, and again, we use a lot of temporary workforce to ebb and flow in the business, and we call our processes temp-proof. I can bring somebody in and probably 80% of the process in the building, and they can learn it within a half hour. So that's a key driver for us to look at that. Again, replenishment. In our old facility with the 3 pick modules that were on the ground, we had about 25 to 30 people engaged in replenishment. New building, there's 12. So again, you look at that labor reduction, corresponding cost per piece reduction in expense. We talked about the order volume, the 57%. The key thing was for us is having the flexibility as we ship 15,000 stores on a weekly basis, going up and ebbing up to 48,000. How do I handle that through the system? So the flexibility, the phase 2 piece Scott spoke about, gives us that capacity and that throughput and our ability to run different chains at different times with an exit strategy without really clogging the module up itself. And then from the layout piece, the design was set up for us to really be flexible and grow. We're starting to see that flexibility now with the additions and the expansions. We're adding 5 more downlines so that we can load. We learned that during the volumes we were loading 18 UPS trailers a day. 5 doors just didn't cut it. So we'll expand that to 10 and be able to, again, accommodate more flow through that specific facility. And then I think the big thing for us was the utilization. That's really what Michael talked about, the storage type analysis. Really an improvement over what we were doing and being able to really optimize that. And along with the different elements in the business, the e-com as an example, Scott talked about that little room we were operating in. We reduced our cost on cost per piece basis by 75% by automating this and going through. So very manual processes, and even on the unloading side for returns, everything we touched really had a significant payback. When I justified the system, we were looking at operating multiple buildings, so it was really the fixed cost from an ROI perspective, getting rid of the additional transportation cost, duplication of space, the extra building, extra staff. And we're seeing the additional benefits just on our variable cost reduction on a monthly basis. And that's really where, when you really integrate and you come up with a system that's flexible and gives you the ultimate design, those other benefits you're going to realize and receive, even though you never really anticipated them. Intuitively, we all know how to operate our businesses and how they should run, but the reality is once we get into it, there's other benefits that you'll actually see and receive. So it was a great project. We're able to look at this mirror and this model, and as we continue to grow, Scott talked about designing the building, right, for double the size of our business. During last year in October, we were running 4 to 5x out of our building of what we were in the other buildings. So clearly we built a lot more capacity in there to run more volume, but we're getting to the point where, okay, we need to look at a second building now, go to a 2 DC network, take some of the pressure off this building, and then focus on the zones and managing the transportation expense from being up close in proximity to the zone perspective. So those are the other benefits that we'll look at from there. So again, questions, happy to share. We've got about 5-6 minutes left. We can take questions here. Michael can man them over here, and then if not, we've got our booth that we can go to, and we'll be at the booth after the show and can really talk to you about any questions, comments you have.
Absolutely. How about for our guest speaker here, Mark Zavado?
Thank you.
So as we said, we got about 5 minutes left. I'm going to take the questions, repeat it so they can hear it on the recording. Anybody got any questions out there?
You're going to let us off easy, Michael.
We talked about how everybody had a couple of space and equipment and labor problems. I mean, here's a panel that can help you. Come on, Patrick. Where do I start?
Michael.
With the data, right, Patrick?
There might be one on the side, Michael.
What do we got? Chris
So-
asked the question, how many shifts do you run?
So we designed the facility and with the capacities to run it just on a single shift. So we do have ultimate capacity to expand and move up and run a second shift based on some ERP limitations and system maintenance. We can run that second shift, but at least it impacts our window of updating system updates at night. So when we get busy, we can run. We typically expand the shift from an 8 to 10 hour shift, and when we're busy, we'll go 12 to 14 hours. And that's how we got through the peak volume. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. And remember, in the stores, I control the space in the store, so I don't have any customers calling for orders. So we generate the replenishment for the stores. And when Scott spoke about the reverse logistics, until I scan that back in and take that out of store inventory, my system will not replenish the stores. So that's why the design was set up in a way where we can really turn the returns quickly. As soon as I get back in, I like them all to be processed that same day, so that now it would trigger replenishment to the stores.
That's a great question. Yep, one more, follow on.
So what sort of headcount decrease did you see, or what kind of
So the question is what kind of headcount reduction did you see overall?
Or productivity increase.
So it goes really back to some of the functional areas that we have, right? So the replenishment piece, we cut it in half. The loading, as Scott talked about, we touched it 5 or 6 times, right? We went down to 1 time. So loading was another example. Loading, we had 5 people loading vehicles. So again, when you look at the headcount reductions, it was really by some of the design elements of the system and be able to really replace what was being done physically and manually with some automation. And that was a key thing. The other part of the headcount reduction is just was the space profiling and be able to profile the space properly. The efficiencies of my forklift operators, the multiple handling and touching of a facility, going to a pick location and trying to move product around and source it. And we did shift from, we had mixed items per location, and we went single item, single location. So the inventory integrity improved as well in the system.
Yeah, and one of the things we didn't talk about is you guys do a lot of value-added services, right? So we started looking at how many bill of material, what the kits look like, and then we laid out different powered, non-powered. Flow was safe, right? So you had the bulk material on one side, finished product on the other. So that was another whole part of the facility design that we didn't even actually cover today.
Right, and that's where the kitting happens, and that's where even part of the design at the inbound, we'd have product that would flow into our assembly area. So Michael's analysis pointed out that, hey, on the flanks of your assembly area, based on the product acquisition strategy and what was going through there, you need to have 6 deep storage on each side of your assembly area so that product would be received from containers, palletize the assembly area. When the jobs were released, we would then release them down to the floor, which was in close proximity to the assembly area. And even the assembly area itself, based on the storage type analysis, our costs in that area went down about 20% just from the efficiencies of the layout. And that was another benefit that we hadn't planned in our ROI.
Any other questions from the audience?
That was easy.
All right. Well, we really appreciate you investing the time in us. I do believe that there is a evaluation sheet. They'll probably put it up. We thank you for your time. Enjoy the rest of Modex. Have a great week.
Thank you.